My name is Erin Bingaman, and this is my informative media project for EDP 256. So, ADHD. ADHD is a common neurodevelopmental disorder that is diagnosed in childhood but often lasts into adulthood. In the classroom, ADHD can present itself in a few different ways. In early childhood, around elementary school age, a student might struggle to work with their peers, may have difficulty taking turns with a specific task or activity, or they might have trouble listening when being directly spoken to. Getting into middle and high school, ADHD can continue to present itself with the symptoms I already listed. More relevant manifestations in an older student, however, include the inability to follow through on projects and homework, losing things that are necessary for daily classwork, or generally feeling restless. Symptoms include many of those that I already listed, but some others are daydreaming, fidgeting, excessive talking, taking careless or unnecessary risks, and the inability to resist temptation. A student with ADHD is not a bad student by any means, but might require specific attention during certain activities to ensure that they are learning to the best of their ability. If a student is displaying some of the symptoms I listed, it might be time to talk to them and their family about ADHD. The needs of a student with ADHD often vary based on the symptoms that they exhibit, so I believe that the best route to understanding a student's needs is to communicate with them and their parents about what strategies will help them learn most effectively. Helping students in an effective manner will look different for every student with ADHD based on their individual needs. After speaking with your student, try out different strategies and find what is most effective for them. 3 categories for effective teaching and learning with ADHD include accommodation, what you can do to make learning easier for students with ADHD, instructions, the methods you use in teaching, and intervention, how you head off behaviors that disrupt concentration or distract other students. Understanding effective learning environments is very important. This could look like seating the child away from the door or window so as to minimize distractions, or near your desk so that you are able to help keep them on track. Focus on active rather than passive involvement. If there is a way for a student to participate in a way that involves some physical activity, such as helping write down key points or passing out visual aids, try to put them in the helping role. When giving assessments, provide multiple options for students' learning to be measured rather than one traditional exam. Allow students the opportunity to be tested orally, on paper, by using a research project or presentation that demonstrates their learning. This will help all of your students, not just the ones with ADHD. Presenting the most difficult material that will be covered in the lesson as early as the lesson allows is an effective way to make sure students with ADHD are more engaged, as there is less time for them to become restless or distracted. Presenting information in multiple ways is necessary not just for students with ADHD, but for all students. Communicate with your students, especially those with ADHD, to know what effective instruction looks like for them. When lecturing orally, try using visual aids, props, and handouts like guided notes to better engage students in the material. At the end of your lesson, circle back to the key points and cover them again. Ask students if they have questions about the material you presented, and give students the opportunity to communicate with you one-on-one after group instruction. Implementing strategies to help a student with ADHD will hopefully curb the possibility for disruptive and inappropriate behavior, but that doesn't mean it won't happen. Establish a subtle signal with your student with ADHD that you can give them if they are visibly distracted or off task from the lecture or activity. This could be a tap on the desk or the shoulder, placing a sticky note on their desk, or another agreed-upon cue between you and the student. If you notice that one of your students with ADHD is beginning to become exceedingly restless, maybe it's time for them to take a break. Ask the student to help you collect or hand out papers, or maybe run a note to the office. If a student with ADHD is acting in a way that is interrupting the lesson or distracting other students, a point strike system has been proved effective in many classrooms. Points are awarded for good behavior that exceeds expectations, and points can be taken away if a student's behavior negatively affects their learning or the learning of their peers. It is important to address inappropriate behavior as soon as possible. For example, if a student is speaking out of turn, try correcting their behavior by reminding them of classroom policies and requesting their cooperation. Try saying, "Remember to raise your hand before you answer a question," instead of "Stop being disruptive." If a student's behavior is not disrupting others and they are not missing key information, it's best to let it pass on its own. If a student is distracted for more than a few moments, then try giving them the cue that tells them, "Okay, let's get back on task." In what is called a response cost system, students earn points for good behavior and points are deducted for inappropriate behavior. When a student has a certain amount of points, they can redeem them for a physical reward. This incentivizes appropriate behavior. Some other effective classroom strategies could be writing key points on the board as you go, helping a student establish a color-coded binder organization system, and checking off activities on the board as you complete them in class. Here's some information on my resources. This webpage from the CDC, or the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, provides information covering ADHD generally as a disorder. At the top of the page, they have links to the different sections that include information on signs and symptoms, types, causes, diagnosis, and more. This website was very useful in terms of finding a preliminary overview of ADHD. The website Help Guide focuses specifically on how to approach ADHD in the classroom and gives a little bit of background into some of the struggles that students and teachers may face, as well as how to handle them. This website provided me with the accommodation, instruction, and intervention model. Attitude Mag is a website and an educational tool targeted towards parents of students struggling with learning disabilities. The specific article that I used focused on information and strategies for teachers and parents to curb and address disruptive behavior caused by ADHD. My resource from the William and Mary Department of Education, titled as Classroom Interventions for ADHD Considerations Packet, was designed for new teachers learning how to handle ADHD. This source gives a more in-depth look at how ADHD manifests in the classroom and provides resources that extend beyond just the classroom environment, as well as why certain strategies may or may not be effective for individual students. From the page on learning disorders online, I was able to get a more in-depth look at how ADHD affects students outside of the classroom. This website provided a thorough and categorized perspective of ADHD in the life of a child and how its impacts span from the classroom to the home and beyond. They also provide great resources for things such as assistive technology, legislation and policy, college and adult life, and so much more. Smart Kids with Learning Difficulties is a book that highlights many learning disabilities, and in the chapter about ADHD, they focus on how to overcome some of the learning obstacles that students face and how to assist them in realizing their potential. Thank you for watching, and here are my resources.